Ever feel like your brain's hit a creativity wall? Like every good idea is already out there?
Happens to the best of us.
Well, buckle up, because today we're diving into Trisociation.
Trisociation.
It's a technique to unlock fresh, innovative ideas.
Okay, how?
By combining three, get this, seemingly totally unrelated concepts.
Sounds kind of wild, but I'm intrigued.
Right. This research paper we're looking at claims Trisociation isn't just a brainstorming gimmick.
Oh.
It's actually rooted in solid cognitive science. It's about how our brains are wired.
So it's not just throwing darts at a board of random words, then?
Definitely not. There's a real method to the madness. But before we get into the nitty-gritty,
Yeah.
how about an example, just to wrap our heads around it?
Hit me with it.
Okay, so imagine taking peanut butter, medieval knights, and, I don't know, roller coasters. That's a combo, all right.
Right. And somehow, through the magic of Trisociation, you end up with a killer marketing campaign.
For what, a new theme park?
Maybe. Or a new energy drink. The possibilities are kind of endless, which is the whole point.
So how does this Trisociation thing work? Do we just start randomly mashing ideas together?
Well, there's a bit more to it than that, thankfully. It starts with understanding bisociation.
Bisociation.
Well,
Two things.
you got it. It's basically combining two unrelated concepts. Arthur Koestler, this super influential creativity guru, believed bisociation is behind a lot of aha moments.
Okay, I'm listening.
He said it's about connecting two totally separate matrices of thought in our brains.
Matrix. Hold on, are we doing math now?
No, not that kind of matrix. Think of it more like a mental framework we use to organize info.
All right, I think I'm following. So you've got one for kitchen appliances, another for, say, ancient history, and so on. Bisociation is like finding this hidden tunnel between two of them where you'd least expect it.
So a coffee maker.
Yes.
That's also a sundial.
See?
Yeah.
You're a natural. You just bisociated. And Trisociation, what this whole deep dive is about, throws in a third element.
Making things even weirder.
And way more interesting. This paper actually says Trisociation can boost creativity in any field, not just specific ones.
So it's not just for artists or inventors, then?
Definitely not. And get this, the paper even connects Trisociation to Aristotle. Yeah, Aristotle.
Wait, the ancient Greek philosopher, what's he got to do with any of this?
Well, he was all about the power of metaphors. Turns out, metaphors are basically bisociation in action. You're taking an idea from one domain and applying it to something completely different.
Like when we say someone has a sharp wit.
Exactly. Borrowing sharp from, say, a knife and using it to describe someone's mind. With Trisociation, it's like building a super metaphor.
More connections, more aha moments.
Yeah, you got it. The paper calls this schema incongruity.
Schema incongruity. Okay, now you're just using big words.
Chuckles.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's simpler than it sounds, I promise.
Right, break it down for me.
Okay, imagine a fish
Okay.
riding a bicycle.
No, that's just weird.
Right. It's incongruous, meaning it clashes with our usual expectations.
Makes sense.
Our brains don't naturally connect fish and bicycles. But here's where Trisociation swoops in to save the day. That third element can make the idea click.
Instead of just fish on a bike, it's
fish on a bike promoting sustainable transportation.
okay, suddenly it's an ad campaign waiting to happen.
Right. It went from head-scratching to thought-provoking. The paper's full of cool examples like this. And what I love is it stresses that Trisociation isn't just theoretical, it's a real-world tool.
How so? Give me some examples.
People are using it in marketing, design, even problem-solving, all sorts of fields.
Interesting.
And they give this awesome example with concept cards. Have you ever played around with those?
Yeah, you have a bunch of cards with random words or pictures.
Exactly. You pull a few and see where your mind goes. Now, with bisociation, you're working with 2 cards at a time.
Right. So more cards, more combos.
You'd think so, right. But Trisociation blows that out of the water. Let's say you have 100 concept cards. With bisociation, you've got 100 potential starting points. But with Trisociation, boom, you've got almost 5,000. Right, just by adding one more concept, your creative playground gets way bigger.
That's wild. So it's not just about coming up with more ideas, it's about accessing different kinds of ideas.
Exactly. And the paper gives this great real-world example of a restaurant using Trisociation.
Oh, tell me more.
So they wanted to brainstorm new business ideas. Naturally, they started with the concept of restaurant.
Makes sense. What else did they come up with?
Soccer and harmony. Totally random, right?
Soccer and harmony. What kind of restaurant are we talking about here?
Well, one idea was a soccer-themed place, but with a big emphasis on, like, teamwork and community.
I can see a real sense of camaraderie among fans.
Right. Or they could focus on locally sourced, sustainable ingredients, tying into that harmony with nature vibe.
Okay, those are actually pretty cool ideas. Not what I was expecting at all.
Exactly. And here's where things get even more interesting.
You're going to say AI.
Am I that transparent?
You've got that AI gleam in your eye.
Laughing. Okay, you caught me. But seriously, the paper talks about how AI can supercharge trisociation.
All right, I'm all ears. Lay it on me.
They actually used ChatGPT, which I know we both love. They fed it sets of 3 concepts and let it loose to generate business ideas.
What kind of themes did they use? Give me the good stuff.
Okay, so one set was laughter, art, and memory. Another was, no surprise, restaurant, soccer, and harmony, just like our restaurant example.
Okay, and what about cars? Did they throw car into the mix?
They did. They also tested car, soccer, and harmony.
So what kind of AI-powered creativity came out of those combos?
Well, for laughter, art, and memory, ChatGPT came up with some interesting ones, like a laughter art gallery featuring, humorous artwork.
I could see that working. Make art more approachable.
Right. Or how about a memory lane comedy club with a focus on nostalgic humor? It even suggested a humor-based memory training app.
Okay, those are pretty good, like legitimately good business ideas. What about restaurant, soccer, and harmony? Did it come up with anything different from what those restaurant owners thought of?
Oh, absolutely. ChatGPT went in some wild directions.
Such as?
One idea was harmony gardens. Picture a restaurant that grows its own organic produce in a community garden. Another was Soc Cuisine, a catering service specializing in, you guessed it, soccer-themed menus for sports events.
Wow, so they both used harmony, but in totally different ways.
Exactly. And for car, soccer, and harmony, it came up with stuff like a mobile soccer training and harmony center.
So like a traveling youth center, but with a focus on soccer skills and teamwork.
Exactly. Oh, and get this, it also suggested a company called Harmony-Driven Soccer Gear.
What would that even be? Shoes designed for like maximum cooperation on the field?
Maybe. But they'd probably emphasize sportsmanship and fair play in their marketing.
That makes more sense.
Right. This is what I love about this whole Trisociation thing. It's not just about generating a ton of ideas. It's about pushing past the obvious and coming up with stuff we'd never think of on our own.
Totally. It's like having a brainstorming buddy who always throws out the unexpected.
And the paper doesn't stop there. It goes on to discuss even more complex trisociation concepts.
Like more than 3 concepts.
You better believe it. We're talking quadsociation using 4 concepts. And then there's the STG model, which stands for State Target Guide.
Okay, whoa. My brain is still trying to catch up with trisociation. Quadsociation sounds intense.
Laughing. I know, right? But don't worry, we can keep those more advanced ideas brief. The main takeaway is that more concepts don't always equal better ideas. Sometimes you need to know when to stop.
So human judgment still matters, even with AI in the mix.
Absolutely. AI is a powerful tool, but we're the ones who need to decide which ideas are worth pursuing. AI can help us explore possibilities, but ultimately we have to bring that critical thinking to the table.
Makes sense. We don't want to outsource our creativity entirely, just give it a boost. So for our listener who's ready to unleash their inner trisociation master.
What are some key takeaways? What do they need to know?
First off, don't be afraid to think outside your usual boxes.
And when choosing those starting concepts for your trisociation,
make them diverse. And pick stuff that genuinely interests you. The more unique your starting point, the more original your results will be.
And don't forget about having a mission. What are you hoping to achieve with all this brainstorming?
Right. A new product idea. A solution to a tricky problem. Or maybe you just want to shake things up creatively. Having that goal in mind can help you filter those ideas.
Speaking of filtering, don't be afraid to discard ideas quickly. Not every idea is going to be a winner. Think of it like panning for gold.
Exactly. You got to sift through a lot of dirt to find those nuggets. Speaking of nuggets, this paper gives some fun examples our listeners can try themselves.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
There's the Albatross car design, which mashes up elements of an elephant and an albatross.
The result. A car that's both majestic and aerodynamic.
Something like that.
And they also came up with these hot-cold homeostasis sandals.
Okay, no, those I have to hear more about.
Picture this. Sandals that keep your feet warm in the winter and cool in the summer.
Sign me up. Are those on the market yet?
Not yet, but it's a cool example of how trisociation can lead to unexpected, even revolutionary ideas.
Totally. And this paper does a fantastic job of not just explaining the how-to of trisociation, but also digging into the science behind it.
It shows that this isn't just some random brainstorming technique. There's real cognitive psychology at play.
Right. But even with all this focus on the practical side of things, this research got me thinking about a much bigger question.
Ooh, do tell. What's this big philosophical question we should be asking about trisociation, especially with AI in the picture? So what's that big question we should be asking about trisociation and AI? Is this creative power too much for our own good?
It's not about too much power, but it's worth thinking about the potential downsides of relying too much on AI for creative work, even with a technique like trisociation.
I see what you're getting at. Could it stifle our own originality if we lean on it too much?
Exactly. The paper doesn't really address this.
Yeah.
But it's something to think about. Could we end up with this kind of creative sameness where everyone's using AI for the best ideas?
And we lose that really unique out-of-the-box thinking that comes from, actual human experiences.
Exactly. We might end up with less diversity of thought overall.
So instead of boosting creativity, AI could make everything feel a bit predictable.
That's the risk. We have to remember that AI, even these really powerful models, is trained on existing data.
It's basically remixing what's already out there, right?
In a way, yes. It's great at recognizing patterns, making connections based on what it's learned. But can it truly be original? That's where I think humans still have the edge.
It's like the difference between a chef who's mastered every cookbook versus one who cooks from the heart.
Yeah.
Experimenting with flavors, trusting their gut.
What a great analogy. We need that balance. The technical skills AI can bring through things like trisociation, and that irreplaceable human touch, intuition, experience, all of that.
So it's about using AI as a tool to enhance our creativity, not replace it entirely.
Exactly. Think of it as a sous chef, not the head chef.
I love that. AI is our creative sous chef. So any advice for our listeners on how to find that balance?
Absolutely. First off, don't just feed prompts to an AI and call it a day. Actually do the trisociation yourself, brainstorm with other people. Let your mind wander.
Don't be afraid to get a little messy with the process.
Exactly. And second, always be aware of potential biases. AI models are trained on massive amounts of data, and that data can reflect the biases of the people who created it.
So a healthy dose of critical thinking is always a good idea, whether we're using AI or not.
Absolutely. Question your assumptions, challenge the status quo, and make sure AI is expanding your horizons, not limiting them.
On that note, it sounds like trisociation, especially with the power of AI, is both an incredible opportunity and a responsibility. We need to use it wisely and ethically.
Well said. Ultimately, the future of creativity depends on our ability to embrace both the possibilities and the limitations of technology while staying true to our own human ingenuity.
This has been a fascinating deep dive, to say the least. We've gone from simple word associations to the future of creativity itself. Big thanks to you for sharing your insights.
My pleasure. It's been fun.
And to our listeners, we hope you found this exploration of trisociation insightful and hopefully inspiring. Now go out there and create something amazing. Until next time, keep those creative sparks flying. So what is that big question we should be asking about trisociation and AI?
Well, it's not really about too much power, but I think it's definitely worth considering the potential downsides of relying too heavily on AI for creative work, even with something like trisociation.
I can see where you're going with this. Could it end up stifling our own originality in the long run?
Yeah, exactly. The paper we looked at doesn't really address this, but I think it's a super important conversation to have. Could we see a sort of creative homogenization if everyone's using AI to generate the best ideas? What happens then?
And we lose that truly out-of-the-box thinking that comes from, being human, right?
Yeah.
Our own experiences.
Right. We could end up with less diversity of thought overall, less of those happy accidents.
So instead of AI helping us unlock new creative heights, it could actually make everything feel a bit predictable.
That's the risk. It's important to remember that AI, even the really sophisticated models, is trained on existing data.
So it's essentially remixing what's already out there.
In a way, yeah. It's really good at spotting patterns and making connections based on what it's been fed. But can it truly be original? That's where I think we humans still have an edge.
It's like the difference between a chef who's memorized every cookbook and a chef who cooks from the heart, experimenting with new flavors, trusting their gut.
Perfect analogy. We need that balance. The technical mastery AI can bring through techniques like trisociation and that irreplaceable human element, intuition, experience, all of that.
So it's about using AI as a tool To enhance our creativity, not to replace it.
Exactly. Think of it as a sous chef, not the head chef.
I love that. AI as our creative sous chef. So any advice for our listeners on how to strike that balance?
Definitely. First off, don't be afraid to, get your hands dirty. Don't just feed prompts to an AI and call it a day. Actually do the Trisociation yourself. Brainstorm with other people. Let your mind wander a bit.
Don't be afraid of a little chaos in the creative process, right?
Exactly. And second, always be mindful of those potential biases. AI models are trained on massive data sets, right? And that data can reflect the biases of the people who created it.
So a healthy dose of critical thinking is always a good idea, whether we're using AI or not.
Absolutely. Question your assumptions. Challenge the status quo. And make sure AI is expanding your creative horizons, not limiting them.
On that note, it sounds like Trisociation, especially when you bring in the power of AI, is both an incredible opportunity and a responsibility. We need to be mindful of how we're using it.
I couldn't agree more. The future of creativity depends on our ability to embrace both the potential and the limitations of technology, while also staying true to those uniquely human qualities. Curiosity, critical thinking, imagination. That's what it's all about.
This has been a fascinating deep dive, to say the least. We've covered a lot of ground, from simple word associations to the very future of creativity itself. A huge thank you for sharing your expertise with us.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners out there, we hope you found this exploration of Trisociation insightful and inspiring. Now go forth and create something amazing. Until next time, keep those creative sparks flying.